Welcome back to another session of the Language Mantra channel. This time, this is session number 26 of Advanced English. In our previous session, that is Advanced English, session number 25, we discussed adjective clauses. And here we continue the same topic. If you remember, in our previous session we discussed relative pronoun, relative adverb, and relative clause also. What is a relative clause? Relative clause is another name for adjective clause. Therefore, you know the basics of an adjective clause. Today, I give you some more tools, more rules, so that you can recognize an adjective clause easily and you can analyze it. So, let's start. Adjective clause is a clause, but when I speak of an adjective, it is just one word. But adjective clause refers to a combination of words. So what is the difference? So far as function is concerned, the function of an adjective is to describe and qualify a noun, and the function of an adjective clause is the same. It also qualifies and describes a noun. So in that case, function of an adjective clause and function of an adjective is the same. There is no difference at all. An adjective clause is always a subordinate clause. Remember it. An adjective clause can never be a principal clause. This is number one. Number two, an adjective clause is always introduced by relative pronouns like that, who, whom, which, whose, etc. We have seen this before. It can also be introduced by relative adverbs like when, where, why, how, etc. So this is so simple. Without a relative pronoun or a relative adverb, there is no adjective clause. This is just like a formula. So remember this. Now, let's see some examples and describe in more details. Example number one. This is the woman who shouts every morning for nothing. This is the woman. This is a sentence. This is the principal clause. It has a subject. It has a verb part. But in spite of the fulfillment of grammatical requirements, this sentence seems to be a little incomplete. This is the woman. So what? Now, it needs some sort of extension to complete the sentence, to give you a good sense. So that's why this is the woman who shouts every morning for nothing. This part, who shouts every morning for nothing, is added to it. So this part is an extension of the principal clause. And this begins with who, and who is a relative pronoun. And you see, this who refers to the woman. Therefore, it is an adjective clause. An adjective clause must refer to a noun because this is the nature of adjective. Without the existence of a noun, adjective does not exist. Here, it is not just one word adjective. It is a combination of few words, that is adjective clause, that is giving some explanation of this woman. Now, this adjective clause, or say relative clause, is sometimes called restrictive clause. Why restrictive? Because the meaning is somehow restricted. That means until and unless you use this relative clause, the meaning of this sentence remains a little bit incomplete, although grammatical requirements are very much fulfilled there. So there are two types of relative clauses. One is restrictive, one is non-restrictive. How to recognize? So when you find a restrictive clause, it is very essential part of the sentence. but non-restrictive part may not be that essential. Remember this. Next example. The golden wristwatch. The golden wristwatch, which my father bought in 1930, is lost. So which is the principal clause? Here the principal clause is broken in two parts. And in between two parts, the adjective clause is inserted. The golden wristwatch, comma, which my father bought in 1930, comma, is lost. So the golden watch is lost. This is the principal clause. And this principal clause is broken in two parts. And in between these two parts, which my father bought in 1930, is inserted. And this part is punctuated with comma, both sides. Now, this part is non-essential part. Even without this part, that is, which my father bought in 1930, that's why this part, this adjective clause is called non-restrictive adjective clause or non-essential. You can easily recognize normally non-restrictive part is punctuated both sides. Now come to number 3. Desdemona lost her handkerchief that Othello gifted her. Desdemona lost her handkerchief. This is the first part. And what about the second part? That Othello gifted her. This that is a relative pronoun and it introduces the second part or the adjective clause. This is restrictive because in a particular dramatic scene, if you know the story, that particular handkerchief is very much important. Therefore, that Othello gifted her, that part cannot be separated from this. Desdemona lost her handkerchief. We are not speaking of any handkerchief. We are speaking of a particular handkerchief that Othello gifted her. So this way, I think this part becomes restrictive relative clause. Number 4, Jim, then comma, who is fond of football? Again another comma. Said it was a hopeless game. Jim said it was a hopeless game. Who is fond of football? This part is not essential. It of course gives you some more information, but that particular information is not essential for the meaning of the sentence. So you see, there are two types of adjective clauses. One is called restrictive and the other is called non-restrictive adjective clause. Restrictive clause, that means it is essential for the meaning of the sentence, and non-restrictive may not be that essential. That part is always punctuated with commas. And if it is restrictive, then sometimes you can avoid relative pronoun like that, which you can do without them. Then come to this relative adverb, when, where, why, how, etc. we have discussed enough. Here we have just one or two examples. The station master knows the time when the train will come. The station master knows the time, then when. When is relative adverb. And this when actually refer back to this word time. And time is a noun. So you see how this adverb is also behaving like an adjective. That's why, despite having an adverb in the sentence, it is an adjective clause. Same way the next one. This is the cottage where I have been living all my life. Where is adverb, but this where refers to cottage. Now that's why these examples also refer to adjective clauses. Now come to another thing that is called continuity. We have seen restrictive, sometimes the non-restrictive is known as continuity. The book that my mother asked for is missing. The book that my mother asks for is missing. What kind of sentence this is? This is of course an adjective clause because that is there, and that refers to this book. So that particular book my mother needs or asks for, and this book is an antecedent of that. Therefore, it is an adjective clause, but restrictive, because a particular book is asked for, and we know this sentence gives you, and this part, that means the adjective clause part becomes an essential part of the sentence. You cannot do without it. If you do it, the meaning of the sentence will hamper. Next one, I called him yesterday when he told me the secret. Now you see, I called him yesterday, and when he told me the secret. And this told me the secret is something that does not match with I called him yesterday. But in a sense, this when refers to yesterday, it's a time. Yesterday is, refers to a particular day, that is noun. Therefore, this is an adjective clause. But this when means and then. So, I called him yesterday and then he gave me the secret. Here, the sense or the meaning is continuing. So, there is a kind of deviation in that sense. This is called continuative. Continuative clause. Sometimes this is, a non-essential clause. Sometimes it is called non-restrictive clause. Sometimes it is called continuative clause. So I think if you understand this, you understand adjective clause. Your focus would be whether that particular additional information or extension of the principal clause, if it is giving a description about the noun or some kind of qualification added to by that particular part. In that case, it is an adjective clause. Adjective clause is very simple. If there is a noun, there is a possibility of an adjective. And if there is an adjective, there must be a noun. And if there is an adjective clause, it must qualify, it must describe a noun. That is antecedent. Therefore, this is an example of adjective clause. I hope this will help you understand the nature of adjective clause. You can now just have a look of a sentence and you can say whether this is an adjective clause or not. So this much today. I don't want to complicate it further. And for today, I close the session. Next time, maybe we'll be discussing adverbial clause. So till then, have a nice time. Goodbye.